hello, Mayor.
Hello,
How are
Mayor.
you? Nice to see you.
How are you?
Hello, Mira.
And Mira, I think perhaps the standing ovation might have had something to do with what happened last week in Washington, D.C. So how'd you feel about it?
Well, it's nice to see everyone. It's great to be back home. Sorry, I ran straight up from the cabinet meeting downstairs, and we didn't get to feed before, so now I'm going to do this so we can get a full uninterrupted hour.
I know.
The
I
level
love
of
that.
logistics that are involved.
I love that. That's very clever, that pink apron thing. It works very well. It works very well. So how was that? How'd you feel during it? It was high stakes. It must be a little nerve-wracking.
It was a long day, I'll say that. And it had just been hyped up so much beforehand, right? There was a movie trailer for a congressional hearing and lots of continued threats and targeting of Boston and our police commissioner and various things that we believe are really important to including everyone in our community. So I was proud to go down there and raise my right hand, swear to tell the truth, and then talk about Boston as the best city in the world. We're the safest major city. We have so much going on, and it's because we are a community that includes everyone.
Do you worry that you, and I think the consensus is you won the battle, do you worry that you lose the war? The retribution desire on the part of congressional Republicans, and clearly Trump himself around these issues, is immense. We already saw the Small Business Administration office will be closing at some point in Boston. He's also talking about cutting other funds. There's some legal issues we'll discuss with you and with Kyle Rose from the Civil Liberties Union at noon. But are you worried about them coming after lots of federal funding sources here?
I mean, this is extremely serious, and as much as it can seem like a sort of show or production when you're watching it, these are Congress has power, and people who are in the federal government have real power to enact consequences, whether that's on federal funding or whether that is to follow through with some of the threats around prosecution of individual people or the referral to the Department of Justice. So we are going to continue to provide the information that the committee was seeking. A lot of this was not just the presence and testifying at the hearing, but documents that they've requested about city policies and different things like that we're continuing to follow up on. And it does feel like much of this is designed to silence people, right? To say if you just sort of keep your mouth shut or quietly change your policies, then if you do what we want and satisfy the political wins right now, then maybe you'll have a chance of surviving better. But that's not an alternative that, one, is acceptable for our community members, and two, that is how you can live for 4 years. So we follow the laws in Boston. We're very clear about that. And we tell the truth about what we do, why we do it, and who we do it for.
But is there a piece of you, I mean, obviously your primary obligation, you'd say it, you don't need me to say it, is to the people of Boston. We were talking to Ilan Stavins, professor from Amherst College yesterday, about how Claudia Sheinbaum, the new president of Mexico, has totally bamboozled Trump in part by playing to him and being nice. And while some find that to be terribly offensive, she's getting what she wants, no tariffs for at least a month. So are you convinced your path is the right path?
We have to tell the truth. That's, at the end of the day, I still believe that matters and that's what's important in representing our communities.
It's just a couple of quick follow-ups on Washington. You're taking a little flack for the lawyers. I think it was $950,000.
No,
it was
600. Excuse me, $950 an hour, $650,000.
Now you're sounding like the Republicans.
That's right. Sorry, I'm just confused. But $650 an hour, $950. So were they worth it?
So again, it is money that I very, very much wish we did not have to spend at all, and time from my staff and my team that could have gone to much better, much more important things. But the stakes are high, and there's again, we're still continuing with the document production that has been formally requested, and When there was threats to put me in jail, to take away funding, I needed to make sure that I was doing everything possible to represent our city well, to represent the policies with complete accuracy, and having legal representation was a necessary part of that.
Can I just give the number before
Yep.
you ask another question? Our number, if you want to speak directly to the mayor, is 877-301-8970. You can call her or text her at that number.
And just, you wore ashes on your forehead, which I didn't even know you were Catholic, but Catholics get ashes on Ash Wednesday. But did you think about that at all, what that meant? And what about the plans for the baby? So ashes first.
Oh my
And then
goodness!
the baby.
It was a full heavy day. I've gotten ashes every Ash Wednesday. Usually at City Hall, we invite a local priest to come and provide that for anyone in City Hall who is interested, just because everyone's already at the workday. And so I'm very grateful that we'd reached out to the Archdiocese, and they helped connect us to a church right nearby the hotel. And we were able to go there early before the hearing, and then sort of have my sort of usual connection to faith and this moment of thinking about our place in the world and our place as, just small, humble human beings who eventually will go back to ashes and dust. And that was a little, it was a little bit of a, maybe that's why I felt so calm as well, that heading into this, there are more important things in terms of understanding our humanity, our connection to each other, and just doing right and being good people in the world, trying to take care of others and be part of a community. About the baby, so we had actually, the reason why it ended up being on Ash Wednesday is because we had asked the committee for more time. Initially,
Right.
they had called us in for several weeks earlier, and at that point, I was still not healed up and had my doctor's note effectively, and so I'm very grateful that they gave us more time for me to heal. But she's still nursing, as you can see, and needs to eat at this point, maybe hour and a half, 2-ish
Yep.
hours. And we had arranged for breaks with the committee so that we would all break and everyone would, take a breath, and I would get to go run and feed her. But initially, there are 47 members of the committee. Each person gets 5 minutes to ask questions or use their time however they would like. And then I think it was almost 10 additional Congress people who weren't on the committee got special permission to join for the hearing so that they could ask 5 minutes. So the committee chair was starting to see a lot of people wanting to make it through. And then at one point early on, he said, now we're going to excuse Mayor Wu because she needs to go take care of the baby. And I had, luckily, my husband Connor was in touch with the lawyers who were sitting behind me, and I kind of looked back and he said, no, she's fine. She's still sleeping. It's okay. And I was able to say, not only I'm going to keep going because the baby's okay right now, but also this is not what we had agreed on, which was for everyone to take a break so that I wouldn't have to go to a back room by myself and miss everything that was happening. But really, Connor was with her walking all through the Capitol, taking care of her. So he's really the hero of that day and making sure that I could sit there and do my job.
Just one last question about the hearing. I want to play your comment responding Tom Homan. He's the border czar, so to speak, who has decided that bullying you in Boston is a good way to make a living. Here is what you said about Homan's comment that he was bringing hell to Boston.
Shame on him for lying about my city, for having the nerve to insult our police commissioner who has overseen the safest Boston's been in anyone's lifetime. Bring him here under oath, and let's ask him some questions. I am here to make sure that the city of Boston is safe. Others may want to bring hell. We are here to bring peace to cities everywhere.
Do you have any idea what his plans are in terms of coming to Boston? Has your office been contacted, or how you're preparing for whatever it is that he's threatening?
No, ICE generally has not been in contact with the Boston Police to give any kind of notice about different things that they're doing. As far as we can tell, they are really still functionally sticking to the types of actions that happened under the Biden administration as well. And again, something I said over and over again at the hearing is it's a false statement that Boston police aren't cooperating on criminal issues. We do that with any federal agency, any state agency. Whenever there's a criminal warrant, we work together, and that is part of the daily work to keep Boston as safe as it is. But in terms of mass deportation, our officers will not play a role in that, and we have not gotten any advance notice from the Trump administration about what they'll do.
Okay,
That's-
Mayor Wu's with us. I'm sorry for the hour.
Yep, she's here till noontime, but meanwhile, we take some calls here at 877-301-8970. Wayne calling from somewhere in Massachusetts. Hi, Wayne.
Hello, Wayne.
Hey, Marjorie and Jim.
Jim.
Mayor Wu, they wanted to describe what you sounded like in Washington, D.C. Only thing is that you was a gangster. You held it down. That's what you're supposed to
Thank
do.
you,
Shut
Wayne.
it down. Tell them to shut up, sit down. And the other thing was this. When you said we are Boston in 4 or 5 different languages, I got choked up. I'm not a young man, but I was choked up. And I appreciate all you did. All
Wayne,
you did,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Wayne.
go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, that's all I wanted to say.
Okay.
You guys are doing a wonderful job, Jim and Marjorie.
Thanks,
And
Wayne.
you too, Mayor Wu.
Thank
we
you.
are Boston.
Okay.
That's right.
Thank you,
so
Wayne.
much,
Wayne,
Appreciate it, Wayne.
thank you for the call. We have several texts that also appreciated that you spoke about being from Boston. We are Boston in the 4 different languages. They really appreciated that.
I think in fairness, by the way, if anybody else wants to comment on the testimony, it probably should be on the merits. If there's an issue that the mayor addressed or was asked about, but I think calls like Wayne's, while much appreciated, will probably pass by for the rest of the show so we can get to content. Let's go to Josh in Gloucester. You're on with the mayor of the city of Boston, Michelle Wu. Hi, Josh.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me on the call. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Thank you.
Mayor, just thank you so much for everything you've done. I was a huge fan of your speech. I watched it choked up twice, and just amazing. So thank you. For me, and Jim and Marjorie have done a great job explaining exactly what the laws are. So for me, it's pretty cut and dry of why you're not doing what the Republicans want you to do. But I don't want to give them a playbook on this. But am I incorrect in assuming that if the Republicans want you to do what they want you to do, Congress would have to pass a separate law to circumvent what is on the books? Am I misunderstanding what the procedural aspects of this are?
Well, I think there's actually, again, not that I'm condoning this, but I think there are a couple pathways in addition to the federal laws. One, which is a matter of kind of effectiveness of an agency, depending on what your goals are for it. The reality is that, again, any agency that gets a judicial warrant, a criminal warrant signed by a judge that has verified probable cause and has gone through that process in the legal system, the Boston police must enforce that. And we do every day, whether that's a warrant that comes from out of state for someone who might be wanted for a serious crime elsewhere, or even outside the country. There have been examples where Boston police have collaborated in that way to bring justice to a particular family abroad. ICE is choosing not to go and get these criminal warrants. And what they'll say is, so-and-so was extremely dangerous and a threat to the community, and yet they're not taking the action that reflects what they should be doing if they believe that to be true. They're waiting until afterwards and then saying, we had to arrest this person separately because, and usually it's not Boston police, because frankly the police department isn't holding people in custody for very long in most cases. We are just Boston police will usually only have someone in custody after an arrest, and either to the court system where they will be arraigned, or if a bail commissioner arrives and then makes the determination that that person is eligible for bail and they make bail. But none of that is within Boston Police's discretion to decide. It's either the courts
Right.
or a bail that does that. But if there were a warrant, they would do that. The other option is state law, right? Because right now we are governed by not only the Boston Trust Act, but Lunn, which is a Supreme Judicial Court decision. So theoretically, if the Massachusetts legislature wanted to change the law, that would have an impact as well.
Josh, thank you much for the call. Mayor, a community activist declared that he was running for mayor yesterday. Shirley Leung, who will be with us at 1 o'clock, had a piece saying that Tom O'Brien, a major developer in the city, worked for Tom Menino for some time, is considering running. And your campaign issued the following statement: "It's clear some developers are willing to do whatever it takes to buy this office. Josh Kraft apparently is not what they expected, so now they're looking for a new option." What's wrong with Tom O'Brien? I mean, he's a major developer in the city. He agrees with you on some issues, including your attempt to do this property tax shift, apparently. He has a lot of city experience. What's wrong with Tom O'Brien?
I'm going to leave others to make their own decisions about what they will do, and put forward a case should they decide to jump in about why this role and why this moment. I'm very clear about that for me and for the work that we've been doing in the city, which is that we do need to make sure that Boston continues to be an example for the rest of the country and the world about how to move forward and how to still have progress. And it is a reality that there are developers and those within the real estate community who very much want to see us loosening affordability requirements that we have said are important in order for Boston to be a city for everyone, and giving tax breaks or other usage of public funds to build more profit for those who are struggling right now. It is a difficult time in the economy for developers. Interest rates have remained at a certain level that are hard, with the tariffs, with all the other actions that are outside a city government's control. There have been some who believe that the public sector should subsidize when this group of profit sort of focused businesses is underwater. And that has not been my philosophy. And we have done everything that we can to boost housing production, to speed up processes, to use city-owned land, and to work with developers who are interested in building great, affordable homes for our community. We've created more affordable housing than any time in the last 25 years under our administration. But giveaways and using those dollars in a way that I don't believe are the most needed use right now in order to ensure that developers continue to have profits, that is not my motivation for being in this office.
We're talking to Mayor Wu.
Let's go to Alex in East Boston. Thank you for calling, Alex.
Hello, Alex.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hey. Nice to talk to you, Mayor Wu and Mira. Obviously, we're very proud of what you did in D.C., but onto my topic. So the trash issue in D.C. is especially pretty bad. It sometimes clogs the storm drains and causes flooding on Brook Street, for example. Pretty heavy flooding there recently. And Water Street has a ton of small trash collecting. And we're a very windy neighborhood because of the geography. And sometimes you see trash blow into people's faces, collect in corners. And I even once saw a roof shingle blow over a small child. I've done cleanups with friends along the Chelsea Creek, and we'd leave with like 4 trash bags of things, mostly straws and cups. Then we go back a few days later, and there'd be even more trash because it all blows over from Eastie.
Alex, what's your question?
So the question is, what can we do to kind of make this better? Extend street cleaning to begin sooner than April, or enforce the plastic bag ban that restaurants are still using and not charging for? Anything else we can do? I know trash receptacles are a tough topic, but is that on the books or anything like that?
We got it. Alex, thank you for your call. Appreciate it.
Great, thank you. A few quick things. So first of all, I'm flagging Border Street. We have started some early street cleaning, so I will check to see where the capacity is, and we definitely have heard this from a couple different neighborhoods, so I'll see if we can make sure that we're directing some of that over to East Boston in that area. Councilor Coletta Zapata has been really focused on this issue as well. So I know in partnership with her office, we've made plans to have more trash bins in different parts of the neighborhood, trash receptacles that are kind of the large ones on the street. And that hopefully will help just for the casual, person walking by who has something that they need to throw away where it doesn't end up on the ground. Also for residential trash, we just need to move towards containerization. So I can see if it's an issue, if there's people who are if the neighbors are tending to just leave bags out instead of having the large bins. Sometimes that's a matter of not having a place to store the bins. Sometimes it's not having the bins. And depending on what it is, we might be able to support there. The plastic bag ban, interestingly, I was part of authoring this ordinance a number of years ago. There's actually an exception for restaurants. And so we could think about and start to have some of the conversations with the local small businesses, but it was grocery stores and other types of businesses, restaurants and uses where you're putting food in it was actually a carve out there, but it might be time to see how people are feeling about it now that that's been in place for a number of years and the implementation has gone pretty smoothly otherwise. So it's a good flag. Thank
Alex,
you.
thanks for the call.
Mira, well, you just spoke about not wanting to, bail out developers if they get in trouble. But the Globe had a story, I think it was today actually, about this one Lincoln Street, sort of a big landmark in downtown Boston, had been valued at $1 billion, 36-story office building, going on auction because they are so in debt down there. And it talked about this as a possible precursor for what's going to happen to other office buildings in downtown Boston, because from the pandemic they have been vacant, and that does dramatically impact, as you know, the property tax collection of the city. So what do you think about this?
Yeah, it's a huge issue, and I want to get into just a tiny bit of the weeds just so everyone understands the real implications on the tax base. But at a high level, this is serious, and we have been working really hard to try to get at the underlying issues here, which is one, there just is not as much demand for office in today's economy when there is so much remote work, and therefore we do need to continue supporting conversions where it's possible, where the property owners want to tap into a tax incentive that we believe is one that is merited to help vacant office buildings convert to residential housing. And there's already 700 units that are in the pipeline from our program on downtown office to residential conversions. We're thinking about expanding that to some other specific types of housing uses as well, and just to keep that going, because we need foot traffic downtown. It's not going to come from the 9 to 5 office crowd in the same way that it did before, Monday through Friday. It can come from residents who will now live there 24 hours a day. It can come from more large events like the gigantic street snowboarding extravaganza that we held on City Hall Plaza that had a huge crowd, and public art installations and other ways that we're just trying to ensure that downtown remains a destination, even if it's not necessarily the same level of 9 to 5 work hub. However, there's a difference between the commercial property owners absorbing a loss from having overpaid or having paid at a time when the market was very hot compared to where it is now. There's a difference between that and the valuation on the city's books that defines how much they pay in taxes. So in many cases, what they had originally bought that building from, and therefore what they were sort of valuing that building from according to the market, is much higher than the city's assessed value on the books. And therefore, when the value then when they sell for a lower value, the real question is, how much lower is that, or is that even lower than what the assessed value is? Whenever the assessed value is higher than what the market value is, of course we get appeals because people want to have their taxes lower and match what they believe the lower rate should be. But whenever the assessed value is higher, whenever the market value is higher than the assessed value, we don't get people coming and appealing and saying, actually, I'd like to pay more in taxes because I believe the building is worth more than you say it is. So there's sometimes those mismatches, and it's not a quick jump to say because something is selling for lower than it did last time, it will immediately be a hit in taxes. We're watching this very carefully, and maybe we should have the conversation internally about how we do change our assessed values to match the market more often. But in most cases, there's actually a little bit of a cushion there, but it is a serious issue and one that we have to keep pushing on.
Mayor, well, we got to take a break. Before we do, 2 quick street things. Alex was talking about streets, and I think it was East Boston. Bike lanes. Last time you were here, you talked about doing a review of all the street infrastructure. Since that happened, there was a story in the Globe about, what are those things called? Bollards?
Flex posts,
Yeah,
yep.
the flex posts being removed, at least on next to certain bike lanes. And the Globe reporter, and my apologies to him or her, I forgot who wrote the story, said they stayed on the scene, and without those protective things there were cars or trucks driving into the bike lane, making it quite nervous. And virtually all in the cycling community said they had absolutely no notice from the city that this was happening. What's up with this?
Yeah, so a couple updates from last time on this. One, since we're here, I will mention that the changes we shared that are coming to Boylston Street in terms of removing the dedicated bus lane that frankly has not been used as a dedicated bus lane for various reasons, that is in process, and we are going to, you'll see some of the milling of the street just to change the lane markings as soon as this weekend, and that then the repaving will happen probably within 2 weeks after that. So this will all be done, redone, beautiful, smooth before the marathon. So that is one matter. On the bike lanes and the larger infrastructure, I think as I shared, this is not, to be clear, this is not about eliminating bike lanes. This is not about saying we don't need bike lanes. We very much need safe, protected infrastructure for more people to use our streets in every way, not just driving, but walking, cycling, getting around however we can, because traffic is a huge issue. And as public transportation becomes more reliable, that is a big piece of it. But we also need to recognize that the more jobs we're adding, the more housing we're adding, our streets are only so big, and we have to have safe ways for people to get around. What is changing, though, is that for the last 15 years, it's basically been an experiment in how we can quickly and temporarily prioritize safety of cyclists and pedestrians, even if it ends up not looking how it should or not feeling like the roadways are as usable for everyone else as well. I truly believe that there's a way to balance the needs of delivery trucks who have to serve our small businesses, of pedestrians, of drivers, and of cyclists, and that we have to constantly be in an iterative conversation to get that right. Now, flex posts are my personal pet peeve. The separation is important, and they are definitely the fastest, cheapest way to create a bike lane that feels like you're not going to put your life at risk. But at some point, when a flex post has been there defining a bike lane for a year now, 3 years now, what was meant initially as a temporary experiment to say, does this work, right? What is called tactical urbanism, do it first, see if it works, see if you need to change it because it's undoable. At some point we have to decide, is it working or not? And if it's working, let's get rid of the flex posts. Let's make it into permanent concrete that is a separated curb, or elevate it in pathways that look like the Southwest Corridor or other places that feel even safer. Because what we see around the city now are places that are supposed to be bike lanes that are separated with posts, and instead you just get gross-looking crumpled plastic all over the place because cars and trucks are running over the posts. They're driving through the lane. They're parking in the lane anyway. And without some combination of more permanent infrastructure, which will cost more and require more resource planning, we just can't stay stuck in this sort of temporary period.
But now there's nothing, right? Isn't that worse than having at least a temporary barrier?
Well, some of these are for routine maintenance. The Mass Ave one, I need to get a handle on exactly what the situation there is with the next steps. But the goal is where it's working, keep it, move it into something that is permanent, that is beautiful, that is fitting of how all of our street users should feel when they're on the street, and move away from this sort of
But you do
temporary
agree
plastic.
that if you're moving the temporary, you should immediately be replacing it with a permanent if that's the goal, rather than leaving an interim period where there's no protection, right? Or no?
Well, everything comes down to the specific corridor, so I don't want to talk about this particular place. But I will say that, again, with this bus lane, for example, it wasn't being used as a bus lane at the end of the day. And so there's real analysis and evaluation that has to be done on, is it even working how it was intended?
Can you spend 30 seconds before the break on, say, Patrick's Day safety precautions?
Yes, and there will be a fuller conversation and press conference, I think, tomorrow on this with all our law enforcement partners. But this is one of the biggest events of the year. We can get upwards of 1 million people coming to Boston for this. It is a wonderful time. It is a celebration of our immigrant heritage as well, and not just a drinking fest. So that is important. And, it's one of the
it is the largest event that runs through a residential neighborhood as well. So that's important to keep in mind. I would just ask everyone, you are welcome. We're excited to celebrate with you. We're thankful that you're supporting our small businesses coming here. But just remember, that's someone's yard and that's someone's house. And we just ask that you keep that in mind and take care of that too.
Matt in Jamaica Plain, you're on with the mayor. Thank you for calling.
Hey, Matt.
Hello. Hello. So good to speak with you all. Mayor Wu, such a pleasure to speak with you. I am a huge supporter. I remain a supporter of yours. And part of what makes me so excited about your administration is your commitment to making Boston the safest big city in America. And I feel like you've made tremendous strides around a lot of different areas with regard to safety, in particular transportation, as families are moving about the city, you know, improving transportation, improving safety, improving accessibility. And that's why I've been so confused about the recent review of the infrastructure projects, and in particular, the recent removal of the flex posts, especially on Mass Ave and Arlington Street. And I'm such a big supporter of yours, and I believe in you, and I've just been really confused and a little disappointed, and was curious what you thought.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you for calling in. Yeah, as I've been saying, this is not about eliminating the need for bike lanes or recognition that we don't need to find every possible way to build multimodal streets. We just have to move into a more permanent and appropriate way of thinking about this infrastructure. I think the goal of go as fast as possible, put up as many posts as possible, and then leave them there even if they're not necessarily working or causing other unintended consequences, and then move on to the next corridor. We just have to be more reflective in how we're making actual plans for permanent infrastructure that I think will be what Boston needs for the long run. So we're in the middle of this. It's ongoing. We're going to be working with community members to develop some clear accountability and principles around how decisions will be made in the future about new infrastructure and roadways. But there's been tremendous feedback about not only the need for balance across the different uses, and it matters when small businesses say that they can't keep their doors open because all of their parking for employees is gone, and we didn't really worry about that too much and just wanted to move as quickly as possible. And it matters when residents from the disability community say, I don't have a way to get to the curb now that feels safe from where I'm exiting my vehicle. And again, this is about achieving a shared usage of our streets and certainly protecting the safety and lives of the most vulnerable street users, which are usually our cyclists and pedestrians. That is key. And I believe we can do more on top of that.
Matt, thanks for the call. Mayor Wu, last month you were here. We talked about Michael Flaherty, former city councilor, who was ousted as a lawyer at the council at the Water and Sewer Commission and got a significant payout. And when I asked you about it, you said, I was not involved. They make their own personnel decisions. Since we saw you, the Globe and the Herald have been reporting on staff there. The executive director has 2 sisters-in-law on the payroll. He used to have a nephew on the payroll. The attorneys of color, according to Globe reporting, were moved aside so that Bill Bulger's daughter-in-law could take a position. Well, I understand you're not involved in personnel decisions. My understanding is you appoint the 3 commissioners, from what I understand, and there's also a procedure that allows you to remove them for cause. Are you approaching a point where you think this is an out-of-control commission which requires some action by you?
So I have had many things on my plate and have not delved into the details of exactly what's been going on under the hood of that agency, and that is going to be a place that I spend some more of my time thinking about understanding what's happening and the oversight that's needed. I will say that my primary interaction with the agency to date has been around the services that they deliver. And when it comes to making sure that our water system is working well and that the increased flooding is managed and moving to a stormwater fee that is equitable, that then allows for even more focus on resilience, they have been excellent on that front.
some of the other pieces around how the organization is run and the staffing challenges, it's certainly concerning and deserves more of a look.
You know, on an up note, a lot of people out in Mattapan are very happy about what happened with this Fairlawn complex, 347 pieces of houses out there. Tell people about, or apartments, I should say, what happened.
It was a really great day yesterday, a culmination of 6 years of organizing and fighting. So this is one of the largest complexes, housing complexes that we have in the city that would have been a market rate complex, and historically had been seen as an affordable place to raise a family in Mattapan and in Boston. But when it was bought by a different company, private equity company, a few years ago, then residents started getting significant rent increases in the mail and then evictions notices. And they fought, organized, and we were able to actually use the city's new program that we've set up to facilitate the purchase of this by a new property owner that is now converting it to be permanently affordable housing. So we've now taken nearly 350 families and units of housing to be permanently affordable, so people never have to worry about what letters are coming in the mail and whether that's going to threaten their ability to be in their community and stay. This is part of our acquisition opportunity program. We had, prior to this, acquired 1,000 units of housing in the same way. It's the fastest way to create more affordable housing because you're basically taking something that already exists and then protecting it forever. This is the largest acquisition to date, and we've been able to use federal recovery funds on this, but now that those ARPA funds, yep. Exactly. Now that those have run out, though, we established a new fund to continue that the large hospitals and healthcare institutions in the cities have contributed their community mitigation funds into, recognizing that housing is important for health as well. And so we've been able to partner with all of those institutions in making huge strides forward for affordability.
Lorraine, you're in Brighton. You're on with the mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu. Hi, Lorraine.
Hello, Jim. Hello, Marjorie. And hello, Madam Mayor.
Hello.
I first of all want to congratulate you on your recent addition to the population of Boston. Thank you very much. And I have some thank yous and compliments for you. I'm very, very pleased that we now have a requirement for covered trash cans. I'm just sick of seeing the black trash bags out on the street with the rats just waiting for dinner. So that's a real solid, concrete contribution. I thank you very much.
Lorraine, do you have a question for the mayor?
I do. I have one more thank you. Can
Quickly,
I give her
very
thank
quickly,
you?
please. Yeah.
Yes. I want to thank Kevin LaRue for getting my street paved. You finally connected me with him, and I'm very happy about that.
Our
Question.
neighborhood liaison. Great.
My question would be, what are we going to do about these wild turkeys?
Amen, Lorraine. How about it, Mayor Wu?
That might be the one issue that will unite Brookline and Boston in a sort of
Thanks,
macro
Lorraine.
force.
Yeah.
How about it?
Thank you for the notes. Our neighborhood liaisons work so hard, and Kevin is fantastic, and I'm really happy to pass along the compliment to him. The trash cans, we are moving towards more containerization. It is technically not required, but we do encourage everyone to do that because, as you say, it makes a big difference for rats and rodents. And then turkeys, I don't know. Just try to stay away from that.
I think you have to learn to love them. That's been my experience. I've become friendly with quite a few of them in my neighborhood in Brookline. Yeah, they're everywhere. I don't know. I mean, really,
I've
what
been
can
in
you
a
do?
car once where they just decided that was the enemy, and it was the scariest thing I've ever been through.
Why don't you tell her a story about Dunkin' Donuts, Jim?
No, I'm not going to tell the story. Okay,
Jim has been accosted many times.
Okay, fine. So, but that's in Cambridge. Are you going to this? I think I read in the Globe yesterday. We talked to you the last time about the stadium being built in Everett and what community benefit or whatever payment should come from the Kraft family, not Josh Kraft, the Kraft, whatever it's called, their corporation that's building the soccer stadium. There's a meeting
tonight
that you're personally going to tonight. Okay.
In Charlestown.
So I think the numbers, I haven't looked at them recently. I think the city was offered $750,000. I believe the city's response was Well, when the casino was built, there was $68 million. So I assume that's your starting point there, 750. What are you saying? What are you looking for from the craft business in terms of adequate compensation for the
Yeah,
city?
I mean, one technical note that the 750,000 they mention isn't even a contribution to the city of Boston that is part of a new discussion. This was actually in the MOU negotiated with the city of Everett, where they had tossed something for Boston into there, and they're just reiterating that they had already committed to that. But anyway,
What do you
that
want?
aside, we're in Charlestown tonight to hear from residents. We've also been talking to climate groups with transportation and other officials around the types of mitigation that will be needed to offset the impacts. The site is technically in Everett, although Boston has a sliver of land over there, but the frontage is going to be out onto Boston streets and through Sullivan Square, because that will be the primary mode of transportation. So we're going to hear exactly what residents are feeling and what they're concerned about, and then come up with a package or an offer, if you will. But for me, right now the focus is going to be on transportation, access, pedestrian safety to and from, and also other impacts that the city will feel.
Josh Kraft said he was going to stay out of this, and you said, I think here, maybe here, you can't recuse yourself from being mayor. What would an appropriate role be if your father was about to build a stadium? What would you do?
I would stay working for my father. Just kidding.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Well, then one more Josh Kraft thing, if I may, before we try to squeeze another call in. Last month, when we asked you about Josh Kraft's voluntary rent control thing, you called it fake rent control. Those are your words, fake rent control. Then a day or two later, my understanding, I know you'll correct me if I'm wrong, the city council passed something that they had been talking about prior to Kraft coming up with this,
Correct.
which was almost the same thing, and then you praised it. So it was fake rent control when Josh Kraft proposed it, but when the city council passes it, it's praiseworthy. Where's the disconnect?
Yeah, we need everything possible on housing right now, but it is one thing to say we're doing a good landlord tax credit because that serves a particular purpose, but calling it rent control to say that we no longer need to have protections against the worst kinds of predatory rent increases is a disservice and extremely misleading to residents. The deal with the Good Landlord program, which the legislature had passed as an opt-in, thank you Senator Edwards and others, and the city council has now opted into, we still need as a city to figure out who qualifies and what the shape of that program will be. I imagine we're going to end up in a different place than what has been proposed on his part, where it is a very significant tax break for a type of action that I think many are taking, and we're glad that they're taking, but it does feel a little bit more like a giveaway than we would be comfortable with or able to afford on the city side. So we're working through that with the council, and in the meantime, we still very much need, you heard it at Fairlawn and Mattapan when we were with the residents, we need to protect against the most egregious kinds of increases, not in a voluntary way, but in a way that will ensure consistency and protection across the board.
We have someone at the microphone, I think. Is she still there, Deirdre, that had a question
It's
about...
got to be really quick.
Yeah, we only have a couple of minutes left, but what's your question about the exam school, Deirdre? Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Just real brief background. I'm a single parent of 2 public school children, and my kids went to the Henderson School, where the principal was assaulted 3 years ago and knocked unconscious. The conditions there were really bad. I moved my older daughter to a charter school, which wasn't a bonus point school. I found myself in a position where she was being doubly penalized because she didn't get any points and because we lived in a so-called nicer neighborhood. Since then, I've been testifying at nearly every school committee meeting, but no meaningful change has happened. And so my question to you, will you let another admission cycle go by where the majority of applicants in so-called nicer neighborhoods are excluded from exam school seats?
Thank you, Deirdre.
Nice to see you again, Deirdre. Thank you again for sticking up for your kids and for all of your advocacy. As you know, the superintendent and the school committee have announced the shifts from 8 tiers to 4 tiers for this admission cycle, while also undertaking the steps to present larger changes for next admission cycle, because this will be now 5 years since the policy was put in place. So they are evaluating a number of things, and we'll look to see the recommendations there. But I know your situation and have appreciated you taking the time to share it with me and with my team. And we very much want Boston to be a place where everyone feels like they have opportunity and everyone has access to the benefits that they believe their children should have and deserve. And we also want that to be not just limited to the exam schools as the one pathway, but through every seat in our school system. But we've had that conversation. It's good to see you
Deirdre,
again.
thanks. You always bring us a gift, and it looks like the
Oh,
gift
yes.
you brought was a pamphlet announcing the state of the city. It's not that much of a gift.
I've set myself up for too high expectations. Now.
sorry.
These are important. These are official invitations to the state of the city.
Invitations to the state of the city.
Here they are. You want to see this? Anybody?
I don't think I've ever had an invitation to the state of the city. Have you had an invitation, Jim?
When do you do? Well, I do now, apparently. What do you? When is this thing?
It's March 19th. So we had traditionally it's in January. I was delivering a baby then. So now we have shifted it back, and I'm no longer in DC either. So it's perfect timing, and really excited to see
Jim wants to
everyone
know if they have food at the reception afterwards, because maybe in that case he'll show up.
Oh my gosh.
8 to 9 is the reception, right?
Yeah, I don't think that was the point of the. So, can you use 30 seconds before you go, giving us a really? Let's end where we began. A really honest assessment of some of the most out of control Republicans you faced. Gosar, Mace. Do you want to do a quick, whatever?
I mean, it was just hard to know what part of the question to answer because the facts were wrong, the accusations were so intense, and they were already decided. But what I realized is that a lot of these people are more used to talking to cameras than to real people. If you took them to any of our neighborhood association meetings on bike lanes, on the stadium, on anything else, I mean, our residents would hold their own against anyone. And I was really proud to represent Boston in that moment, to stand up strong for who we are and who we will continue to be.
Mayor Wu, it's great to see you. Thanks so
Thank
much
you
for your
very
time.
much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mayor Wu. We appreciate the invitation. And we're grateful that you come and talk to our listeners once a month.